Yeah, it's a good point. I think it takes like I say it takes you should be doing an hour a year. That's probably the highest levels that I know. You know, Josh Johnson's now doing an hour a week, which is
Incredible.
that's crazy. But the way I thought of it was 1 hour a year, and so after a year, I tried to do an hour or at least 45 minutes. But then, as you indicated, as you go on tour, it just keeps changing. So I actually started this tour in Australia and Singapore, and the shows were terrible. And it took me until like halfway through America where it started to find a bit more shape, and I started to find the jokes. And yeah, so I'm tweaking all the time. In fact, I watch this now and there's jokes I added after that will never be seen again. That after this special was taped, I still was adding jokes to this. So
I mean, we'll get to that, but I definitely was thinking about that because I was like, it was very clear that this was filmed before the election, and I was like, that was fascinating to me.
yeah.
So, I guess maybe moving chronologically through like the different topics you tackled in your special, I was looking at your tour calendar last year. It felt really like you spent most of your last year, 2024, touring, but you were doing the Daily Show at the same time. And we talked about this, but I'd like you to repeat it tell me about like, how were you able to balance your life going back and forth? Like, because you talked about you don't like being on the road for too long.
Well, yes, I love touring comedy. This is my first love. Hopefully I'll never have to stop doing this, even if it's to just 50 people. I don't care. I'll tour this. Try to do this forever. But I try to tour and go home. So I like to do the weekend tour, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then go home Monday, and then go out again. Just because I don't know. I feel like when I was younger, I would go on the road nonstop, and I almost lost my mind. So I had to go home and like just reset a little bit in New York City. So I like to tour just on weekends and go home. Also, my wife would come out with me because she produces the shows, and so if not for me, for her, let's just go home and like reset a little bit in your own bedroom, right?
Yeah. Well,
wait, that sounded
what a weird segue.
Sorry, I meant
it
reset
works.
in
It works,
my bedroom.
but I hate it. Yeah. So
Sorry.
speaking of the fertility journey,
Yeah.
another thing
reset my wife in my bedroom.
another thing we're chatting about is it's sort of almost like a subgenre at this point, right? Comedians talking about fertility and things like that.
I like to think I was ahead of the curve here.
You were. I actually did. I did my research. It is very now. Like I just spent a lot of time watching about videos about dudes
talking about fertility,
compulsory masturbation, which is your burden to bear. But but because there are more comics addressing this, like how when you're thinking about like including something like this, like are you aware of what other comics how they've done it? Like how do you chat with other comics about things like this?
No. In fact, I try not to listen to it so you don't get affected by other people, so that your expression is as pure as possible. It came from myself. I think I got. So I didn't know that talking about your sperm was becoming a genre of comedy.
Hot topic.
I thought I was ahead of the curve here, but then everyone else, I guess. But I think it's more obviously parallel thinking, right? No one's copying off each other. I think at for real comics, we're definitely not copying off each other. I just think it's an indication of the times that we're in. Is that this has become a common thing now, and just people like when I did this bit in New York City when I was working on the first joke, I guess we can call it the fertility joke. I felt like half the crowd afterwards would be like, "Oh yeah, we did the same thing." So half the people in New York are doing this, So I guess in that sense, it's a sign of the times, right? So it's technology and culture catching up to this, right? So as in comedy is a description of this snapshot in history, and this is where we're at right now. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's something that people are thinking about, especially as in general, people are like starting families a little later. They're really trying to plan as much, and you also see more men like talking about it and kind of getting involved.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I think that you were talking to the LA Times about this, but how has because I know you've been getting response to this part of